I'm Rebecca King Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
Today on Conversations on Dance, we are joined by Dwight Rhoden, choreographer and artistic director of Complexions Contemporary Ballet. Since it has been over 6 years since we last had Dwight on the podcast, we go back to the beginning and hear about his start in dance and choreography. We dig into his process and what he looks for in dancers, both for Complexions and when he's choreographing on other companies. Dwight tells us about his new work for Houston Ballet that is running from June 6th to 16th as a part of a mixed bill program called Four Seasons. This is Dwight's first work on the company, so he tells us what it's been like working with the dancers, how the work has evolved from his initial vision, and what he hopes audiences will take away from his work. For more information and to get tickets, visit houstonballet.org.
Dwight, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's been about 7 years since we last. Is it 7 or 6?
Something like Unbound Festival. What was it, 2018?
Oh, it was the Unbound. Yeah, I don't know. 2018 is definitely pre-pandemic.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That's why it was 6 years ago, but it feels like maybe like 60 because it was just a different world then.
Right.
But
we've been through a lot.
Yes.
We have been through a lot.
We're still here. We're on the other side of things. So.
Right.
But you know, since it's been so long, we would love to get go back a little bit and hear about your own personal performing career and what first got you involved in dance and how just some of the early things that have led you to where you are today.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I've talked to you guys before. I'm from Ohio, and I started dancing very, very late. I started dancing at 18. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because I had any knowledge that this world existed or that it was, even possible to be a dancer or that was a career path. Mm-hmm. It was just, I hadn't been exposed to it. So what happened was that we used to go to the Friday night dance in high school, and there was a contest every weekend. Now, I used to dance all the time, love to dance, like social dance, just turn on the music and, boogie oogie. Mm-hmm. Now you can tell my age because I said boogie oogie. But yeah, so, and I used to enter the contest, and there was a professional dancer who was a dancer in one of the local companies, and she just was in the contest every weekend too. And she said, "You're really good. You should think about formal training." I was like, "Well, what is that?" And she's like, "Well, I'm a professional dancer." And she took me over to the studio. And to be honest with you, I never left. I quit my job. I had like a side job, working at the grocery store at the Kroger's. And
Kroger's. That's my grocery store growing up in Kentucky. So,
well, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
and I just, I fell in love immediately. I had been a musician. I played the flute, the drums, and the clarinet. And nothing really, really spoke to me in the way that once I walked into that studio and saw that form in front of me and the discipline and the way their bodies were moving, the expression, I just felt like I found it. Mm-hmm. And of course, my family was like, "What? What do you mean? Dancing? Yes, you can dance on the weekend. You dance, that's what we do." Because we used to dance at home. We all and stuff. But, I had to educate my family as well on what dance was. And so, but I went headfirst into it. And that's how I found it. And it was with DCDC, Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, who is still in existence there. And that's how I got started.
Oh, I love that.
So it's not, I'm guessing you must have, you said you were in the studio 24/7 afterwards, but what did that kind of catch up look like for you? What were you, I'm guessing you were taking lots of classes. Like, how are you trying to bridge the gap?
Yeah, no, like I would go over so this was Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, very, very renowned company, but there was a ballet company, the Dayton Ballet as well. So in the evenings, I would go over there and take ballet classes. Sometimes it would be like an adult ballet in the afternoon, in the evening. But I knew I needed it because if I was going to have a career, I'm 18. I'm a senior in high school. I'm graduating very soon. And, if I don't train, I saw what was there. I saw the professionals and I was so inspired. And I was like, I was a very good mimic. So many people thought I was better than I actually was at the time because I might be able to do it once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a mimic of it.
Yeah.
Of course.
And like one of those people who just could, I do impressions too, but I won't do any impressions. But it's like copying that was good, was easier for me.
Right.
Right.
But I didn't have all the tools, so I knew I had to study. And I literally, they would tell me to leave the studio, like, we've got to close.
Gotta go home. It's so funny. I feel like whenever we talk to people who start a little bit later, they always say that they were able to do that, like mimic, like copy and paste from someone that they saw something and then could put it on their body. And I wonder how that maybe helped you with your choreography when that kind of started to come into the picture.
It did, I think I was very, sort of an impetuous young man, didn't really know the world, didn't know the etiquette, didn't know what was proper. Like because, I was in the company maybe a month or two, and I went to the director and said, I'd love to choreograph a ballet for you. And she was like, because I had learned the word choreography, by the way. I didn't know it before. And she looked at me and said, what do you mean? You're still trying to figure out how to do tendus and dégagés properly. She cut me down to size real quick on that. But I think that idea of, I guess I was very impressionable. And so I would see choreographers. Then once I learned that that's what you did, or because I also made up my routines in the dance contest every weekend, and they were elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think of things like, you guys are probably too young to know the Carol Burnett show, all those variety shows.
Of course, yeah.
Carol Burnett, I think there was the Lawrence Welk show.
Mm-hmm.
Cher had a show from time to time, all those specials.
Mm-hmm.
I got a sense of how you put a production together by watching that first. What was TV, and then slowly we had choreographers that came into DCDC, Dayton Contemporary, and I was like, wow, okay. So they do all of this. So how do they do what they do? And I was watching like a hawk, just like loving it. Knowing I felt something then that was really where I, would end up. I thought I would always create.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just, that mimicking and that idea of being able to reproduce something or use the influence, absolutely, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the beginning.
The other thing I wonder too, because you're talking about how you just like went up to the director and said, I want to do this, that because you didn't kind of know yet the way things kind of worked, then you weren't like scared. Do you know what I mean? Like you maybe just were like, I'm going to throw myself into every situation I can. Do you feel like that also came to help you?
It did. And, they say ignorance is bliss. I really didn't know, I didn't know what was proper.
Uh-huh.
I had to be schooled a lot. I was not disrespectful or anything because I was raised right. But what it was I just didn't get it. And I was also I had a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I really had a lot of energy that needed to be kind of contained. And it was good that I found dance, or I needed to find something in order to channel all of this energy and passion that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why like dancing and music, I just felt like it was so right.
Mm-hmm.
Can't even explain why, but just it's other than I like to move, and I love music.
Right. Yeah, I do find it interesting. I feel like almost every late starter we've had has just had an easier time of seeing themselves in a leadership role, maybe that you aren't kind of, I guess maybe if you start super young and you're just so consumed by the perfectionism of the training, but there are bonuses to starting late. And I think that a lot of the time you can come in and you can have that kind of attitude of like, well, this is normal. I'm 18. Why can't I do something that is like more of a leadership thing? Like, whereas the dancers, I think we can be sort of childlike if you start, at a young age. So I'm wondering too, so you're already interested in choreography. This is something, you were already making dances at that point, but when did kind of the idea of running a company or starting a company enter the picture for you?
Later. And honestly, when we started Complexions, Desmond and I, we did not plan to have a company. We plan to do a project one time, get all of our favorite friends together, make this great show, have a great time. And then he was leaving to go work with Billy over at Frankfurt Ballet. And I was trying to get my work out because I had already had a couple successes with the ALA company. Judy and Alvin were so supportive of my creative endeavors. And so, they really did prop me up a bit and help. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to do something. So, so when it came to the company, I mean, that came like only after we once started it. Because we did not play. It actually happened in the tech rehearsal at Symphony Space, 95th and Broadway, sitting at the tech table. Desmond and I looked. I said, I needed him he was on stage, and I said, I need you to come watch this. I can't do this alone. Come out. We sat next to each other. We looked at the stage, and we were like, wow, this is so special, because you had ballerinas, you had contemporary dancers. We had a couple pop lockers and more street vernacular improvisation. Like, we had everything on the stage, which is what Complexions has sort of become. We were just like, wow, this is special. And it's not even about the fact that what they're doing. It was the fact that they were all so different and they were all working harmoniously. And the beauty of that sent such an important message that is still so important. It's an old message, but it says a very important message today. And we're kind of starting to get it in the ballet world, in the dance world. We really are. We really are. It was the beauty of that.
I mean, I was very lucky. I got to work with the dancers of Complexions this year on a Justin Peck Padada. I was I was greedy because I was like, why is it only 2 dancers? I love everyone. I want to work with everyone. But we had, I guess, 4 or 5 couples in the room, and 2 couples performed it. They were everyone was fabulous. But I was very struck by this, what could be a super precarious balance, right? Everyone is so individual, and the breadth of the talent and where people's strengths lie is it's just so broad. But then it works somehow. Like, how do you fine tune the roster? How do you know when you're auditioning someone, like, they're going to fit into this puzzle that ends up being so beautiful, such a beautiful whole?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't know exactly. I know that Des and I, we really do vet our dancers. It's not that, we love dancers, and we're both big teachers. You know what I mean? Like, we like teaching and doing workshop stuff. I actually I love that part of what we do, which is like work, the process itself. It is, I mean, to be honest with you, Michael, it is really not easy to manage all of those energies that are very, very different. The one thing that has to carry throughout the whole thing is that we do a big interviewing process. Once the dancing is done and we're in love with your work, now I need to know you as a person. There's only 16 dancers in Complexions, sometimes only 14. So it's either 14 or 16, 8 men, 8 women, or varied gender identities, actually. But sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 16. So everyone has to work harmoniously in some kind of a way. We have to get along. We're on the road. We don't do anything but tour. That's all we do. We tour and perform. And if we're not getting along and you're on that long flight or that hotel or in that next theater, it's not good. So we do a big interviewing process. And the first thing I ask is, are you a nice person? And of course, they all say yes, and then we dig in a little further and just
check.
Try to get to know them. It's important,
Yeah. I wonder how, and we'll go back to kind of your freelance career as a choreographer too, but when you're coming to Houston Ballet, you're creating your first work on the company, how is that vetting process then different? Because you're coming into a studio full of dancers that you don't yet know, and then how are you picking them for your work that you will then create?
Well, it's always tough because I have to usually, because of, like union rules and things, like you got to get the casting up maybe after, I think it's like 3 days, you kind of need to kind of know. I think Stanton really put that in place here in a way where I get the chance to really get to know them, Stanton and Julie, actually. It's just that getting to know them is really, as you know, Michael, too, is like, I wanted to use everybody. all the time,
Yeah.
Right.
all at once. So just like getting down to the casting, I mean, and this is a great problem to have, right? That
Yeah.
you have a room full of very vibrant artists, because they are. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting in the offices of Houston Ballet right now, but this is a beautiful company. I mean, I'm not the first person to know that or say that. They're a beautiful company. And I knew they were beautiful, but I also thought that our process in the studio was very special. And they were with me all the way. So, you know, of course, you're always nervous. I'm still, I won't even say my age, but at this age and at many ballets that I've done, I always still am, you know, there's nerves. You know, there's nerves. You want to do a good job.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the dancers are inspired and that you feel like you're doing something with them or they're getting some growth out of this. So there's a lot of things that I think about. And also you want to create a beautiful work that moves the audience. There's that part too, you know?
Oh yeah, that part. It's a lot. Michael's like, yes, I hear you.
But I have to say, they've been great. They've been great.
Yeah.
So what's your process generating new material? I mean, let's take specifically with Houston Ballet since it's coming up. Like normally, would you make phrases prior to entering the studio, or do you come in and strictly work with the dancers? Do you ever do improv or like, you know, I don't know what you would call them necessarily, like not games, but like, you know, some choreographers like to do kind of workshopy things where we, you know, we get to know one another. Like what for you, what's your generation? Like, how do you generate material?
Sometimes because of the time factor and the lack thereof, I usually have a phrase or two prepared. When I was younger, when I first started out, I would have a whole, like a half an hour long full of material. And there were none of it. I mean, a lot of it never made it in, but you know, you over prepare, I guess.
Right.
Whereas now I just like to have at least one or two things because I also want to make sure that I'm creating it for the people in front of me, especially here because they're different than, say, San Francisco. San Francisco is different than, say, Pittsburgh or wherever. Right. You know, it's all very, like, I want to try to get in there. Yes, they're all going to be good dancers, have training, all of that, available, ready. But what is their vibe? What are their personalities? What's the feel? But I do walk in with my concept as well in tow. And then the dancer. So it's like kind of like it's all feeding in. And then I sort of decide on number one, who, and then how, because this piece that we're doing here now took a little bit of a left turn a little bit when I got here because of them. And I was happy to make that left turn because it was going to be for them. And yeah.
Well, let's dive into that.
Yeah, I want to hear about what the left turn was. Tell us. What were you thinking first, and then where are we now?
Well, it's the concept of the work is called the lightning round, and it's really it looks at kind of life. It's abstract, and I say there's a wandering narrative in there. It's there, but it's not linear at all. And so the lightning round is about how our lives are so full and so jam-packed that everything feels as though it's the last time, or this is the final time, or this is the most important moment. So we are filled with those challenges and deadlines, and life is just so complex and full and challenging. So I think that was my concept coming in. That didn't change. The way the piece came about, I ended up using 16 dancers. So there are 8 couples. I was only going to use 7. And then when I got closer to coming, I said, you know what, maybe I'm just going to use 10 dancers. That's it. 5 couples. I get here and I go all off the charts with 16. And then it was also that it became much more, there was everyone has their moment of feature in this ballet, but it was going to be more ensemble at first. But when I got here, I wanted to pop out these beautiful personalities more. It was going to be an energy that moved.
Right.
Now the energies have specifics. I mean, specifically individual, I should say, according to dancers. And so that's the left turn. It's not a big left turn, but it just kind of the configuration and the composition, my whole concept kind of went somewhere new.
Well, let's talk about the logistics of this too, and then where Stanton and Julie come in terms of, there's a program. This is on a program, right? So they probably need dancers for other things. So that sometimes you might come in with an idea like that and tell an artistic director, I want more dancers. And they're like, sorry, you can't, so how has that kind of collaboration been and them allowing you to kind of like Michael said, get a little greedy and get some more of those beautiful dancers on stage?
They were great about it. And, I went to them. Well, I mean, I had been on Zoom with Stanton previous to when Julie came on here at Houston Ballet. And then I've been speaking to Julie because I did just do a work at Washington where she brought me before she left to come here. It's funny. So we're all
small world,
small dance world. And they were fine with it. They Stanton wanted as many people, and I think Julie feels the same way, as many people to get the chance to dance as possible or get the experience. I feel like Stanton and Julie really are about the dancers, like growing them and challenging them and giving them food and, all of that. I just see it. I see it as I watch in the studios, as I talk to them, So they were 100% on board. They wanted more, they had no problem.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. That's nice. I mean, that's what, I guess that's anyone's goal going to a new place, is that the inspiration is so overflowing that you just want more and more. You're greedy for all of that the artists are providing you with. So obviously you have a concept coming in, but was this concept musically driven? Do you have a new score? Tell us how music is a factor in this upcoming commission.
So that is we have a brand new commission score, original score for this by David. Yeah, by David Rosenblatt. David is a fantastic musician, composer, percussionist. The score is very sort of dynamic in terms of, you might hear a pass that might have a sense of, maybe you might have heard it before, like, is that Bach? But it's not Bach. But then all of a sudden you're in some other world with this dynamic drumming and these weird sort of, we've been calling it dark matter sounds, where it's just like, it's almost like, like, I don't know. I won't. Anyway, there's some sound, really, really cool. I worked with David the very first time on Diana Vishneva's project, which was Beauty in Motion, I think. It was a tour she did, and her and Desmond did my ballet. They were featured together, and I made this ballet for them and the Marinsky dancers, and they were fantastic. And then we worked together. He did my Othello at Charlotte. He's done numerous things for Complexions, and so the music played a big factor, and we had to go back and forth because we're working on Zoom like this, because he's in New York, I'm in LA most times. Sometimes I'm in New York, and then he's on tour. So I don't, we weren't able to connect. And then he did come here for one day. So it was really back and forth, play the music, talk about sounds. No, I don't like that. Yes, I love that. Can we have more of that? It's, back and forth.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Do you feel like now that you have this great working relationship together that he kind of knows what you want, or are you always just like something totally different each time? They're just throwing him curveballs.
I think we do have an unspoken language because we've done so many things together. But, he always says, okay, you're the boss, Dwight. So what are you going to change in my music today? I was like, I want you to cut that part. I want you to cut that. We're like, we're very good friends as well. We've been friends for years, so we can give each other a little bit of a push here and there. But I'm always like with David, like I'm always like, yeah, no, take that out. I don't need that part at all. I love this part. Can we have more of that? And then he's always like, no, I need this, and we go back and forth, but we find our way.
Right.
It's all love, really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that must be so valuable to you as a choreographer to have a closeness with your composer. I mean, I'm sure you've choreographed many, many, many times to an existing score that is, unchangeable. It's as it is, but to have that back and forth to kind of make it's a little more malleable to your own choreographic vision and needs.
Absolutely. And it's, we did get it, we had to get it fixed and laid down by a certain point, also because the orchestra has to actually learn it. It's going to be played live, which is the most exciting thing. I love it when music is live. And so, they really, it's a very complex score too. And it's complex for the dancers to hear and know. And I'm not a county person at all. I don't know. I'm really terrible with counts. I don't know counts at all. I just know boom, boom, boom. I know the rhythms.
So they're in the back like one,
you in any
two.
ballet I'm staging, Dwight.
Oh, yeah, Michael, I don't know. With that work you just did for us with Justin, that was complex, man.
Which one did you do again? What was it?
It's the Dreamers. So
oh, right.
Beautiful pas de deux, and it has, it had but it was very kind of the dynamics and the rhythms, and it would shift kind of wildly from time to time. It'd be like a gorgeous waltz, and then it would get really fragmented and weird. And but I had these dancers counting. Maybe I'd have you counting, Dwight.
You would. I have to say that when we did, Stravinsky, I did Pulcinella. I had to count. I had to count. No one even knows I have a Pulcinella, but I have a Pulcinella.
Well, I'm going to be doing Justin's Pulcinella soon, so maybe after I'll do your Pulcinella back to back. I'll know the counts. So I can.
Although so many, I have been asked for this work, and I'm always. And my agent is always like, well, why don't you want to? I was like, I don't know. I just don't want to do it.
Michael's going to study that video. He's going to get those counts for you. You guys are going to do it together. Get it out there.
Music. Yeah, it's really, If you love music, you have to love Pulcinella. Yeah.
I mean, Stravinsky is very complex, and I love it, but it's also it was a hard for me at that moment when I did Pulcinella to actually put it together. I just remember struggling a little bit in the beginning, and then we finally found it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this brings up another question. I was curious for me, I have not a choreographer bone in my body, but when I would think of, starting a project with no music and no steps, you have a totally blank canvas versus starting something where at least you have the music as a starting point. How are those different, and which do you prefer? Do you prefer the challenge of just here's nothing and create from there?
I actually prefer to, I don't turn on the music right away for a long time, even if I have it.
Oh.
I don't turn it on. And so Desmond, who is, very close collaborator with me when we're making work especially for the company, a lot of times we wish he could come out on the road too sometimes, but it's, I don't know, I kind of don't turn on the music because I like to make sure, what it is that I want to make sure that the movement itself is conveying, the physicality is conveying the vibe, the feeling, the story, whatever it is. And it's like a little bit of a push on myself to say, is what you're creating actually saying what you wanted to say? Because the music can be very helpful, right? You could turn on the music and be very helpful in getting where you're going inside of a new ballet. But I'm looking at the movement, and then Desmond is always turn on the music, Dwight. They need to hear the music. I was I will, not yet.
I'll get there.
But the music, I actually not so much music right away. I like to get the movement going and watch the bodies, and then I'll turn on the music, and then we figure it out.
How it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have it in my head. I know what the music is. But,
sure. Yeah.
But for David, I didn't know the music. I just had he sent me a couple patterns, a violin lick here and there, a couple piano passes. And I was like, okay. So, yeah.
So I'm also curious then, you say at a certain point you have to just be that's it, we're done editing, this is it, send it to the printers and, we're done. At what point when did you decide that you had to assign that, and how early out does it have to be? I mean, because for you, you could keep editing your work forever, theoretically, in the dress rehearsal, you can come back and be I didn't like that step. The way it looks on stage, and let's change it. But the music, you can't really keep doing that. So at what point did you have to kind of nail it down?
It was probably about, so we're at June, we opened on June 6th. I think it was probably top of May, in May somewhere, like the first couple of weeks. It's once the musical director here, the conductor, they said, we really need it. And, it was kind of that way. And I am still editing the piece Dance Wise as we speak. 3:00 today. We will do a little further edits.
Yeah. I mean, well, you're what, a week out, exactly a week out from the premiere on June 6th. So yes. I think that's reasonable. We've worked with choreographers who do dress rehearsal edits.
Oh, yeah.
Might be working with one right now.
I try not to do that when I'm guesting or when I'm a guest choreographer. I try to limit it because they're not used to my process. Like with Complexions, I can just throw anything at them. Because we're just together all the time.
Right.
Now these dancers can handle it. So I am pushing a little more with this company, to be honest. They can handle a few of the, and it's not actually adding. I'm at my process where I like to shed things a little bit and take away because you guys know my work pretty much. It does tend to be, it's very complex and there are a lot of steps and it's rhythmical and all of that. I love the whole counterpoint and the musicality and making the movement itself have a part. Since it's a visual and people come in, sit down and want to see, and then we're also listening. So I also want to create that kind of a beautiful mashup, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm kind of curious, like, how did this commission come about? It's because it's your first time working with Houston Ballet. But in my head, if you had been like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 30 years," our 10th collaboration, that would make sense to me too. Houston Ballet, world-class organization. You're a world-class choreographer. It just seems like I'm kind of a little surprised that it hasn't happened before. So maybe you could give us a rundown of how this came to be in this season.
Well, I'm a little surprised. Me too. And honestly, I feel like sometimes I'm a little late to the party. And I think, the world we live in right now, that, I think opportunity, especially within the ballet field, I see that people are really opening the doors a little bit wider now and not sticking to a format that might have worked before. But I don't know why I haven't come in. And, the way it came about was Stanton just asked me.
Yeah.
we had met down when he did Bespoke for San Francisco on the Unbound. We had met many years ago because we were both many years ago auditioning to be the artistic director of Ballet Mat. This is years and years and years ago. And I met him then. And I always loved his work and really liked what he was doing. And then we saw each other again in San Fran. And he didn't ask me then, but then he called me. I think it was during the pandemic, or it might have been a little bit before. And then the pandemic happened, and we had to kind of wait.
Right.
Figure it all out. But yeah, you just asked. And I was so happy he did. And Julie, I've known Julie since, her heydays in the ABT in New York, and I was in Ailey, and we knew each other and we were friends.
Yeah.
And I adore her. So it's great. I'm so happy that they're together.
Yeah. It sounds like such an ideal team. We talked to them earlier this season, right? Yeah. And I mean, we're just so jealous. I want to go to Houston Ballet. I want to.
Come on.
I want to circle back to Complexions for a second. That it's now you're talking about. You had like this just one performance, and then it grew into something, and now it's been 30 years. So how has obviously this is. I'm sure that was not anticipated that it would last, be going this long, but how has it evolved in a way that you really didn't anticipate?
The fact that it's still here.
What an accomplishment.
I know, we didn't set out. And I mean, honestly, the 30 years has crept up on us that, oh my gosh, we're here. We're 30 years in. And, June 10th, 1994 was the first performance. And so we're coming up on that actual date.
So it's like here. Wow.
Right here. Yeah. And one thing I should say, I'll start with what I find to be proud of about this company is that we have stayed on course. There's always a lot of noise when I know as a young director, no one trains you how to do this. You just do it. You know what I mean? You just do it. And there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of trends. There's a lot of people doing this and doing that. We're not really those people. Desmond and I, we kind of stayed on course with our vision. Sometimes it was difficult to stay on course because, there's all kinds of things that come into play where you think, oh, I should make that decision. Everyone else is. So maybe I should. And then, most times I really look at things like that and try to be confident in what I really feel. I'm not always successful. I'm not saying that. But when I do, I'll be honest with you. For me, it's usually when things go the best. In terms of that, I've really stayed true to my heart. And it's a collaboration because Des and I talk about everything.
Yeah.
We really do. I mean, he knows what's going on here. I shared with him my tech rehearsal last night to say, look, what do you think? And so because that's how we've always worked creative.
Right.
But honestly, that in itself is an accomplishment too, to be able to have such a wonderful collaborative relationship all that time as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Des and I were partners for almost 20 years, for 18 years. And then we are now, like best friends. And, we still argue. We still disagree. We disagree, and you have to. But we respect each other so highly. And, he values my opinion. And I know my strong suit, and he has a strong suit. And that's how we come together. So, I'll go to him with a question that I'm not so sure about. And he'll come to me about something and say, what do you think we should do? Yeah, it's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
Friendship and, history.
Yeah.
You need that to have someone that supports you outside of your own, no, you can't be all knowing. You need to have someone that you entrust with, giving some feedback,
Oh yeah.
That's why Rebecca's on this podcast. I'm just kidding.
She keeps you in line, Michael.
She really does. Michael, I know you've been rehearsing all day, but we have a podcast tonight. What would I do without? Just to go back to Houston Ballet a little bit. Could you tell us, obviously you were really inspired by these dancers, so I'm wondering what you would consider some of the hallmarks of the company. Like, what are some unifying traits that made you like them so much you had to expand your cast?
On board. On board, no hesitation, no resistance. Okay, so did they have to dig into the style a little bit more and get it under their belt? Absolutely,
sure,
but all very, very well trained. And I was just speaking to someone about the fact that what I love about this company is nobody's alike. And it's pretty obvious when you walk in the room here and we're not just talking about the diversity and the race and all of that. That's very obvious. That's the most, easy. And that's important too. Absolutely. However, it's also body types, strengths, textures. They just don't all do the same thing. However, but then they can, they can be together when you need them to be. Cool. And I told Stanton, I said, you and Julie, you really established a remarkable thing here somehow to have that many different types of people in one room and still be able to put on a production that is, cohesive and together and unified. And, so that was really the biggest thing. And being in the studio with them, it was just like they couldn't wait. They seemed to want to do this, and they were with me.
Right.
It was just amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah. Just for our last question, I wonder what you hope that audiences will take away from this work.
So the work is abstract. I'm an optimist, and if you see my work, you kind of will always see that I may give you every problem in the world. I may lay out for you the challenges, but I will give you that dose of sunlight and, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm hoping that the audience can connect in a deep way with maybe seeing that pace, that urgency, that challenge that we're all experiencing, and then seeing how collectively this group of 16 dancers work their way through it, come out on the other side. And honestly, it ends with a question mark with possibly there's a challenge right around the corner, guys. So let's just keep doing what we're doing. So it kind of has a unifying. So I'm hoping that the audience can, take away a bit of that sentiment and feel good in a way at the end. But actually, you're going to rock through some pretty hardcore things that are going to happen. But hopefully we will make it to the other side. We will. And I want them to feel that.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, I think that's a beautiful way to send the audience home in a closing program for Houston Ballet season. And I'm sure that it will endear you to audiences as well, as I know the dancers must love being in the studio with you. So it's so great to hear that you've had such a fruitful experience. And we hope maybe that ballet, we need to bring it to New York so I can see it. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, married for opening night, and we know that audiences will enjoy it so much. And thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Conversations on Dance is part of the ACAST Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.